Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about reverb and delay and kind of how you can use both of them to create an ambience in sounds. There's a few different approaches that I have depending on how the element sits in the track, and therefore as an example I've taken a part of my track and we're going to explore some of the ways that I'm using reverb and delay in this track to give some elements the little bit of ambience and the room feeling that they sometimes need. So without further ado, let's jump right into that. Alright, so I'm going to play this part here, and I want to talk about first though before playing that is that most elements in here are already kind of reverbery, like the samples in here. For example, that loop sample here is already having a little bit of reverb. Most of these, like big drums from the Cashmere pack, come with a lot of reverb, as you can see. So there is already a lot of reverb baked into the samples that we're using. But in some cases, either I'm synthesizing something on my own, or I want to add a little bit of extra reverb to it. In those cases, we'll talk about what's actually going on and where the ambience is coming from. But before that, I'm going to play this intro and also this very first part of the drop, which is still, as you can see, there isn't a lot happening, so it's still very much in early process, but I think it's an interesting project nonetheless. So you can hear that the overall vibe is very nice, and I've really tried to take each element that I have, for example, like the drum loops and all of these, this kind of loop that I showed off before, and this pad sound that we have here, as well as all of the effect sounds and the vocals, and really put them into their own space and all have them contribute at least a little bit to the track at any point, where normally I would layer some things, and sometimes I would just layer things just because I wanted to, and it wouldn't really make sense. And here, because I want to try to have every element have like a special purpose, its own unique purpose, I've also been a lot more, going a lot more in depth with the delay and reverb and those kind of elements, and see what for kind of things you can do to make them sit better in your mix. Because I generally have a lot of problems when it comes to mixing in reverb. I've talked about making sure that your reverb is filtered, which is the first tip here is if you have a reverb, you can input, or you can process the input and filter out all the frequencies you don't need. So if you have a sound and you just want like the middle frequencies to have a little bit of reverb, it's better to do it like this, and then make your reverb that way than to not have the filtering and try to mix that in, because you're going to end up with the high end and the low end as well. Obviously there's a lot more you can do if you have a more advanced reverb plugin, or even if you have this on like a send or on its own audio effect track. But filtering in your reverb as well as your delay is very important to make sure that they sit nicely in the mix. But what I mostly want to talk about is just ducking them out. So in the first example, we're actually not doing that. So this is the first example that I want to show. So this is a very unique sound in that it has a very long delay and reverb. Basically what I wanted to do is that the delay and reverb coming off of this sound kind of majority rings in there here and fills up this entire 4-bar part after it, almost reaching to the next part or the next version of that sound. So to do that, we have a very long feedback on the echo plugin, which is the plugin that I use for ping pong delays now, or the effect that I use for ping pong delays. The reason for that is you can set the amount of stereo. So you won't have the delay hard band left and right, but it will be a little bit more in the center, which helps with monocompatibility. There are other ways of doing that. Again, you can put things in its own rack. So you could take the other delay, this simple delay like this, group it, set this to dry wet to 100. Actually, let's do that the other way. You can take a dry wet rack if you have one. You definitely should. If you don't, you should definitely make one as a preset. This is how it works. You have a dry and a wet chain. And you can use the chain selector to select between dry and wet. And then on our wet, we can set the delay. And let's say you wanted to set it to ping pong. We'll set the dry wet here to 100% because this is the wet channel. You can set up all your settings you want. We'll set it to ping pong. What you then can do is take, for example, the utility and then just turn the width down in the same way. Let's say you have an external delay that you want to use, like a plugin or whatever, and you don't have the capability of setting the stereo width on the delay tail, then this is a way you can do that, at least in Ableton. So yeah, that's a tip I wanted to go over with the delay, that this is a very long, but also, as you can see, the reverb is also fairly long in terms of a long decay time and a long dry wet. And it's kind of sitting in the entire sound because we have a very slowly progressing sound. I thought it would be cool to have at least for this one here, have the dry wet just always very high, whereas for some other elements we're doing some automation, which we will get into as well. But with that, it kind of covers up when it starts here, covers up the rest of the sound, and you can still kind of hear it ring out. So like this. So that's a cool effect by just not doing anything. It seems a little bit odd, but if we go into some of the vocals here, maybe what you can see is that at least for the delay here, we're actually turning off the delay when the vocals first start playing. So for example here. And that gives the vocals enough space to kind of sit in the mix nicer, rather than not having that. So if we disable this automation clip by deleting it, and then, oh, what was the final value? 39. Okay, we can delete it and then set it to 39 ourselves. You can hear that it kind of gets covered up and it's not as clear of a vocal line. Whereas before we had it like this. So that's a way you can duck delays and make them sound a little bit nicer in terms of the overall mix together with the dry signal. And I think I've done the same thing here, or actually I haven't. We've done the same thing here with the delay on the vocal that's no longer in use. But another element where I did it, for example, is this squelch, where I did it for both the delay and the reverb. So you can, if we take the dry wet of this one, you can see it going up towards the end. And the same for the delay, it's kind of going up. In this case, it is still there when it's already playing, but it gets louder towards the end. So that gives it again a cooler effect where it's a little bit clearer when the dry sound is playing and it feels a little bit ducked. And then once the sound has stopped playing, we turn up all the ambience effects, and they kind of, you know, bring in the ambience and the kind of post, the kind of the tail there. So that's what this sounds like. And again, if we don't have that change in automation, it sounds like this. Just a lot more covered up and not as clean as you could make it. So those were some of the tips I have on mixing delay and reverb. Obviously, there's a lot more you can do with it. You can go really advanced with it, but these are some basic things you can do to keep your delay and reverb kind of clean and sit them well in the mix. I do want to go over some more of these kind of more broader tutorials on like processing leads and that kind of thing, or just elements in general. So if there's anything you want to see, leave a comment down below. But that's going to be the video for today. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.